just like before, whatever Q is the opposite of Q, right? Which is false, false, true, true. And now I can do the OR statement, which is reminder that this is the two column I'm looking at. I'm looking at the P or not Q. So how do we find the OR statement, which is reminder the OR criteria is as long as there's a true, the result is true. As long as there's a true, the result is true. I don't see a true here, so the result is false. As long as there's a true, the result is true. So looking at this thing here, this is what we have, which is true, true, false, true. Now, in order for us to verify if they are equivalent or not, we have to ask ourselves, does the two items at the endpoint, do they exactly match line per line? Which is in this case, as you can see, they are matched line per line. Then we say, well, if they are matched, then they are equivalent, right? So this is what we have, which is, again, this is what we have in terms of equivalent, which is construct your truth table, one of each, and compare your last item, okay? Compare the last item. If they are exactly matched, then we say that they are equivalent, okay? So question with this equivalent and tautology or the truth table here. All right, if you don't have question, let's take a look at the next item here, which is we move away from the truth table a bit. We go back to it. If you remember your argument item, we go back to it. But let's take a look at number 16 and 17. Number 16, they ask you, given the conditional statement P imply Q, express the following symbolically, and write each statement in English, which is that's number 17, right? So again, if I give you this statement, if it is red, then it is not an egg, right? So looking at this thing here, first of all, what is the converse, right? If I have a conditional statement, what is the converse? Reminder, how do we form a converse, or what is the symbolic for converse? Remember, the converse is all we need to do is changing the order, right? Whatever in front, we move it to the back. Whatever in the back, we move it to the front. Which is, again, if you were to write this in English, then you just say, if it is not an egg, then it is red, right? Whatever the back statement, we move it to the front. Whatever the front statement, we move it back to the back. That is your converse. What about your negation? Well, to form your negation, reminder, your negation is not an if and then statement. They tell you to keep the first one. Whatever the first one is, we keep the first one and we change it to an and statement, negate the second one. Which is, what is my first item? My first item is, it is red. And I negate the second one, which is reminder to negate anything is if your statement have the word not, we take it out. If your statement not have the word not, we put them in, which is, it is not red and it is an egg, right? So again, this is your negation, which is P and negation of Q. And last two item, how or what is the inverse? Reminder, your inverse is you kept everything the same, but you negate both of them, right? The P stays the same position, the Q stays the same position, but you negate the P, imply you negate the Q, which is in this case, if it is not red, then it is an egg, right? You negate them, which is, like I mentioned, negation is easy. If they don't have the word not, we put it in. If they do have the word not, we take it out. And what about a contrapositive? The contrapositive is reminder. The contrapositive is basically you flip them or you change the position and then you negate both of them. Or you just take whatever the inverse is and you flip the inverse, right? You take the converse of the inverse, right? So again, looking at this thing here, if you take the converse of the inverse or the contrapositive, it will be, if it is an egg, then it is not red, right? So again, this is what we have in our test 2, right? The last test we have in class, which is, again, you should have a copy of that test. I think I give it back. You should have a copy of it. And then, you know, we have this on our test, on the test 2. Okay. So again, those are something that is basically require you to memorize your symbolic, and hopefully from the symbolic is help you to write your statement. Okay. Number 18, 19, and 20. This help us to the next material or the last material we have in chapter 3. Right. An argument is a logical statement consisted of several items, which is reminder. The first thing we need is we need the premise, and then from the premises or from this premise is imply the conclusion. Right? We have some premise, which is for us. We have two premises, and we imply the conclusion, which is the third line. Right? When does or when is my argument valid? Well, when the tautology, when you construct the item and it's come out to be a tautology, meaning again, when the premise is true and imply your conclusion is also true. And also this thing here is just say that again, it's just logically or sound logically true statement. It is not really actually true, right? But again, it just basically sound true or sound argument because your premise lead you to the conclusion. Okay. So again, the book just have this thing here just to show you what is the argument is. Our goal on most of your question on your final exam probably something like this, right? Probably something is again, determine if this is a valid or an invalid argument. So how do we determine if this is a valid argument or an invalid argument? Well, number 21, very easy in the sense that looking at this thing here, the only thing we can do is we need to construct, as always, your truth table for chapter 3, right? Construct the truth table, which is in this case, if you construct the truth table, this is what you have, which is again, your fixed truth table, true, false for P, true, false for Q. And looking at this thing here, if we were in class, like if you remember, I wrote number 1, number 2, number 3, we have 3 connector, right? So now what do we have to do? We want to work from left to right, which is in this case, we want to work inside the parenthesis first, which is inside the first parenthesis. Do you agree that the first thing I need is I need the negation of P, which is negation of P is the opposite of P, which is false, false, true, true. And now I need to do this or statement, which is again, reminder, what is the or statement, which is again, what two column am I compare? Hopefully you say negation of P or Q, which is this is the two column I'm compare. And now if this is the two column I'm compare, what is the criteria for or? Which is criteria for or is as long as there's a true, which is the first one is true, as long as if I see a true, the result is true, which is the second column, the second row, I don't see a true, so that's why it's false, right? And again, I'm done with the first item. In order for me to do the and statement, I need to have the negation of Q, which is negation of Q is easy, which is whatever Q, which is in this case, we have false, true for the negation of Q. Now I can do my and statement, which is reminder, your and statement, we look at the parenthesis, which is again my 4th column, and the negation of Q, which is that's what I just found. And the and statement is reminder, the and statement is as long as there's a false, doesn't matter where, as long as one of them is false, the result is false. So again, the first 3 items I see a false, the last item I don't see a false, that's why it's true. The and statement, the only time it's true is when both of them are true. Okay. And again, you guys probably don't need to do this, but like I mentioned in class, or as I mentioned, for me, because of the if and then, whatever on the right, I want to move it to the right, right? So that my I won't get tricked in terms that reminder, this is what I need to do is I need to do the implication or the if and then or a conditional statement. And reminder, the conditional statement is I have to look from left to right. Whatever comes first, I need to look at first, which is this is the last 2 column is what I compare to, which is false, implied true. As long as the first thing is false, is automatically true, right? The only time for the error to be false is the first thing is true and the second one is false, which is this is the last column or row, sorry,